Greetings, travelers, and welcome to an excursion into the retro wildlands. My name is Nomad, and this is my gaming podcast, where I like to share my thoughts and experiences with a video game that I've discovered or rediscovered while roaming the gaming wildlands. Thank you very much for tuning into the show today. Today's journey into the gaming wildlands isn't a full expedition into the wilderness, but a shorter one. A short excursion, if you will. In our regular, numbered episodes of the show, you and I will check out a video game and spend a good amount of time with it. I'll use game music and sound to play through a bit of the game with you as I tell you all about the game and share my own thoughts and experiences. Over the last few years, I've played some awesome modern AAA and indie games that I've wanted to talk about, but I don't feel that they would be the best to make long-form podcasts out of, especially since the show's focus is mainly on older retro games. As a way to talk about some of those more modern games, I've made some YouTube video reviews talking about some of those, which you can find over on our channel if you search the Retro Wildlands if you're interested in checking those out. But as a way to talk about those games in podcast form, I've molded those video reviews into an audio format in an effort to give you all something to listen to, as well as try and tell another audience about some of the awesome games that I've played. It should be a fun ride together, so strap yourselves in. Welcome, my friends, to the excursion. Greetings, travelers, and welcome to the Retro Wildlands. My name is Nomad, and in this video, I invite you all to join me around the campfire as I share with you my thoughts and experiences with a little indie Metroidvania-style action-adventure game called Chasm. Castlevania Symphony of the Night was one of the best, most entertaining games I've ever played for my podcast. When I learned about Chasm and how a lot of its inspiration seemed to come from Symphony of the Night and other Metroidvanias that came before it, I knew I had to give it a try. More than that, Chasm came with a world map that was procedurally generated each time you played. This potentially created infinite replay value, which, I don't know about you, sounds pretty awesome. Chasm was successfully kickstarted in 2013, and while it's pretty available across multiple platforms, I was happy to discover this game was available on the PlayStation Vita. I took my Vita with me on my family vacation this year, and I pumped over 20 hours into Chasm. And while admittedly Metroidvania-style games aren't my favorite, I had a good time with Chasm, and I'm eager to tell you all about it. One quick note though, all gameplay footage I'm showing off today came from my beautiful aqua blue Vita Slim here. I'm still learning how to capture and render gameplay footage from this little guy, so if the frame rate looks a little lacking and the images aren't super crisp, I'm still learning, so I would appreciate your patience as I learn how to do some cool stuff with video. Developed and published by BitKid Incorporated, Chasm sees you playing as an aspiring Gildian knight, sent out on a mission alone to discover what happened after a nearby mining town, which is essential for the stability of the kingdom, has gone silent. It's going to be up to us to discover what's going on, rescue any survivors, and slay any monsters that might get in our way. So gear up, Wildlanders, grab your sword, don your Gildian armor, and prepare for battle. We're going deep on this adventure, so let's begin our descent into Chasm. The story in Chasm is pretty straightforward. When the game begins, we learn that we are an aspiring Gildian knight, eager to join the ranks of the elite. As a way to test our training and resolve, we're sent on a mission alone. The mining town of Carthus reports that their town was attacked by a beast. The townsfolk refuse to work in the mines until the beast is taken care of, and that's where we come in. Tasked with investigating the mining town and getting things back in operation, we're asked to make a 3-day journey to Carthus. While it's not explicitly said, we know that success in this mission will more than likely grant us the knighthood that we seek. Bound by duty and honor, we set out to the town of Carthus, unaware of the dangers that lie in wait. Upon arrival, we meet the town's mayor, J.Q. Karthus. Things have gotten considerably worse since he sent a message to the Guildian Knights. In the dead of night, a mob of creatures and monsters came up from the mines and ransacked the town. What's worse? Most everyone on the surface is missing, presumably taken prisoner and held up in the mines. Our mission is to rescue the missing townsfolk and put a stop to the evil that's ravaging the town before whatever evil that lurks in the depths finds a way to the surface. Chasm's visual and audio presentations are wonderful. Visually, the game sports a retro pixel art aesthetic that always hits the spot. Even though you're primarily going to be adventuring underground in mines, catacombs, and caves, there's plenty of visually appealing places to visit and do battle in. You get a great taste of things to come as you start the game, and even more so as you venture to the mining town of Karthus. I mean, just look at all of this. Beautiful colors, textures, and even some parallax-style background scrolling. Absolutely seasoned to perfection. Character and enemy models look fantastic as well. Your character, the aspiring Guildian Knight, is well detailed and animates beautifully as they move, jump, and attack. Enemies you come across are mostly interesting to look at and are very detailed when it comes to their outward looks as well as how they animate. Most enemies even have unique defeat animations, adding more to them, almost giving them their own personalities in a way. In combat, you'll oftentimes need to be aware of certain attack animations or mannerisms so you can plot your next move, and the animation quality of the enemies here make that a breeze. As I entered new areas, I was often more excited to see what sorts of new enemies I'd be fighting instead of what new loot I'd find. The areas you'll be working your way through are all interesting enough and look good in the process. The mines are very, well, mine-like, as well as the catacombs, but personally I really enjoyed the keep as well as the garden areas. Every area offers its own challenges while remaining visually distinct. If I had to level any criticism at Chasm's visuals, it's that the more time you spend in a location, the more each room tends to look like the last. While some unique rooms do exist, it all starts blending together, and the wonder you feel when checking out a new area does fade fast. But I can't really fault Chasm as a game for this. Really, this is a product of Metroidvania-style games in general, which sees you in similar areas and revisiting already visited rooms quite often. Still, from the characters, the environments, all the way down to attack animations and how cool it looks to shatter a lantern, Chasm's presentation is a solid package, one that complements the most important part of our journey. And that is with the gameplay. The gameplay in Chasm is very fun and easy to find yourself getting absorbed in. If you've played a Metroidvania-style game before, like Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, Super Metroid, or something similar, you already have a good idea of what the gameplay loop Chasm offers is. Metroidvania-style games for the uninitiated are best described as action-adventure platformers that have non-linear progression, and that progression is dependent upon different abilities and items that you're going to find along the course of your journey. Basically, you're dropped into a world and can explore it however you want and in what order you want. You can't go all willy-nilly though, as many areas will be blocked until you find the right piece of gear or learn the right ability in order to progress, which is the most appealing thing about games like this. Plus, you'll have some RPG-style elements baked into the gameplay and how your character develops as you go. However, the most unique part of Chasm's gameplay is how the game world is more or less randomized. The way this works is, when you start a new game, it reaches into a hat basically and pulls out specific room layouts. Then, those layouts are plastered all over your map. What I mean by this is, the room itself isn't really being generated on the fly each time. The game is just putting specific pre-built rooms in a unique order for you to discover. The idea being that your descent into the chasm is always going to be different. On the surface, this is a great idea, and it made the 3 different times I played this game through feel a little different each time. But really, my experiences across each playthrough were still similar enough that I felt like this gimmick wasn't as interesting as it could have been. You'll take on bosses and obtain specific gear and abilities in a preset order no matter what, so there is a limit to how random the game can actually get. Plus, there would be times that I would have 2 or even 3 of the exact same room layouts butted up against each other, which made things confusing and very uninspiring. No human level designer would make some of the decisions that you're gonna see as you play through Chasm, and I often found myself wondering which method I actually preferred myself as a gamer. Still, the changes in the map did add a little spice to my replays, but that's the key. You have to play the game multiple times in order to really appreciate this mechanic, and after my second playthrough of the game, I was more or less done and ready to move on from Chasm. Now, don't let that leave a bad taste in your mouth. I spent about 10 hours in my first playthrough of Chasm, and I enjoyed a good portion of my adventure. Once you descended into the mines and are set loose to discover its secrets, it was genuinely fun slaying monsters, gaining experience, and collecting loot from fallen foes. The RPG elements on offer here are pretty solid without being too overly complicated. You have your basic RPG stats, which increase as you level up, but it'll be the equipment that you find that'll help you tailor your playstyle as you see fit. You can focus on physical attack damage, magic damage, or even work to build a defensive character that can withstand more punishment from your enemies. Thanks to an update that came out for the game a couple years back, you can now choose character classes for your hero after beating the game once, which further pushes your stats into the areas that you want to focus on. As you explore the world of Chasm, you'll start to come across the townsfolk that went missing from the mining town. Once you free them, they'll return to town and offer their services to you whenever you go back to the surface. Some townsfolk will let you buy weapons and supplies from them, while others give you side quests to accomplish for more loot. Accomplishing some side quests will even expand a townfolk's capabilities. For instance, the blacksmith will let you craft weapons from materials you find during your adventure. You already have a great incentive to explore every inch of the game world, but finding townsfolk to expand your gameplay options is the icing on the cake. One of the townsfolk you can find will allow you to purchase and upgrade magic abilities if you decide to partake in any. Most of the abilities are callbacks to Castlevania, which is kind of a nice nod to the series. You have abilities that you can acquire, like a magic boomerang and Molotov, that act like the cross and holy water from Castlevania. While I never cared much for the dagger sub-weapon, I found it incredibly useful in Chasm, and it was my preferred magic ability. You can throw 3 daggers at once when fully upgraded, but for as cool as that was, I usually just used the daggers to get the attention of an enemy so it would come to me, and I didn't have to go to it and potentially aggravate other nearby enemies. Though your magic abilities are nice and all, I really loved the hand-to-hand combat in Chasm. While you start with a short sword, you can find a number of unique weapon types like daggers, warhammers, spears, two-handed swords, and even a whip if you're feeling like bringing out your inner Simon Belmont. Some weapons may be physically stronger but slower to swing. Others may be faster to use, but they may be weaker. It's up to you to decide your fighting style. Do you favor quick, short-ranged, low-damage attacks, or are you into the long-range but slow-to-swing powerhouse that is the Warhammer, for instance? Personally, I think your weapon choice can add more replay value than the randomized maps can, as it can be really fun changing up your tactics depending on what weapon type you decide to wield. Chasm can be a hard game for some, as the further you progress in the game, the harder platforming can become and the fiercer the enemies are going to be. I did enjoy battling most of the enemies in this game, and it was fun learning all their quirks and figuring out how to best take them on in combat. With around what feels like 100 unique enemies in this game, there's plenty of variety to be had. But more dangerous than the slew of monsters and ghouls is the platforming. More than halfway through the game, Chasm will throw some pretty solid platforming challenges at you. While none reach the levels of frustration that was the wall jumping in Super Metroid, some platforming requires extremely precise timing and button inputs, or else you're going to be taking a header into an environmental trap for some serious damage. This can certainly be frustrating, but it was nothing worth quitting the game over or anything crazy like that. Overall, the gameplay loop of Chasm is fantastic. As soon as I played through the game once, I immediately went back for another run at a higher difficulty setting. I even played the game a third time in order to get the Platinum Trophy, and it didn't feel like too much of a slog, especially for my third playthrough. While I see the replayability in the randomized maps and all the loot drops, a couple times through was all that I genuinely needed to get what I wanted out of Chasm. And at 8 to 10 hours of playthrough, if you're taking your time, that's a good amount of time for a Metroidvania like this one. So when you wrap it all up, Chasm is a wonderful game that any Metroidvania fan should take a chance on. While I didn't find unraveling the mystery of the evil that's preying upon the mining town interesting in the slightest, I had a great time exploring the game world while I learned how to defeat each enemy and level up in the process. The randomization of the game world in each playthrough is an interesting idea, all things considered. I like how you can't just do an internet search to see where a specific item would be, it's all on you to figure out. But sometimes room layouts were repeated in odd ways, and the overall progression through the multiple biomes was more or less the same, so it's hard to feel like each adventure is truly different. But don't let that stop you from experiencing the game. A lot of love went into this adventure, and it very clearly shows. While platforming can be hit or miss at times depending on the room layouts, combat is intuitive and fun, exploration is often rewarding, and gathering loot and gold never gets old. It's always satisfying starting out as a level 1 newbie and ending the game so powerful that enemies tremble when they see you coming. So, what are you waiting for? If you're looking for an adventure game that brings together a lot of what makes adventure games great, check out Chasm and show the world that you have what it takes to be a Guildian Knight. Thank you very much for listening to my review of Chasm. If you stuck around this long, I'm hoping it's because you like what you heard, so if you want to hear more from me, check out our other episodes of the Retro Wildlands podcast. You can also check out the show on YouTube, where you can find some other video game reviews, as well as some past live streams I've done if you're looking to partake in anything like that. The Retro Wildlands is also part of the SuperPod network, home of some awesome gaming podcasts and other gaming content, so you can follow us over there at superpodnetwork.com. Other than this show, you can check out some awesome shows such as the SuperPod Saga, the Elder Trolls Gaming Podcast, the 3DO Experience, Remember 64, and many more. There's blog posts, videos, and tons of other content, so be sure to check all of that out over at superpodnetwork.com. Now, if you're still listening and you have a few minutes to spare, I would appreciate it if you could leave the Retro Wildlands a good review on your podcast platform if you're able to do so. Off the top of my head, you can leave a star rating over on Spotify, but you could leave a more substantial review on Podbean, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, and iTunes, just to name a few. Good reviews will help circulate the show into more search feeds, but more than anything, it'll let me know that you're liking what it is that I'm trying to do here. But, as always, you are under no obligation to do any of this. Just the fact that you're listening to my show right now is much more than I could have ever asked for, so above all else, thank you for being here. And thank you again for partaking in this short expedition into the gaming wildlands with me. Keep an eye out as I'm fixing to post more shorter modern reviews like this in the future. If there's a specific game that you'd like me to cover either on YouTube or in a short audio excursion like this, reach out to me on one of our social media pages and let me know. Regardless of where this road takes us next time, I hope you're able to join up with us as we keep exploring and discovering some awesome video game goodness. Until then, my friends, my name is Nomad and you can find me roaming the retro wildlands.